get enough of this guy. Jason Gregor, my co-host on the DFO Rundown. We just taped episode 229 this morning. You can get that wherever you get your podcast. And Jason, want to talk Edmonton Oilers offseason and where things stand. I think it's a fascinating summer ahead for Ken Holland. I think he's got a lot of different options and potential opportunities. Probably isn't going to be any seismic changes with this Edmonton team that seems ready to go into battle again next season. But my question for you is, when you consider some of the different positional opportunities that might exist to improve, whether it's on the right side at forward, whether it's third line center, or potentially in your bottom pair defensively, what stands out to you as priority number one to try and bulk up for the Oilers?
Well, I think the two areas are they're going to look at, can they somehow maybe tweak their right defense? But that would be a significant move because it's likely going to mean Cody Cece's out. Bouchard's not going anywhere, and I'm pretty bullish. I think Vincent Desharnais is going to be the ultimate late developer with his size, and he has to improve his puck skills, and that's what he's going to do this summer. But Kyler Yamamoto is probably the one. I don't expect him here. So that means you've got a right wing top six forward position, and you're going to either play with McDavid or Draisaitl. There is no right wing position available in the NHL that's more attractive for a right winger to get to play with either one of those two guys, right? So I'm curious if I'm Ken Holland, I'm using that. And I wonder if there's guys on the free agent market, now Thomas Tatar shoots left, but he can play the right side. Would he assign a 1-year deal, come here, pad your stats, have some success, and then who knows what happens? Now, the only unfortunate part about Tatar is he's never really done anything in the playoffs. So that's an issue. I don't think they need a third line center. I think Ryan McLeod is the guy they're going to use as its center. He's got great speed, skates, kills penalties. He gets the crumbs on the second unit of the power play. But I thought he really took a step in the playoffs last year. He's a young guy and he'll just emerge. He's probably going to get a $2 million deal around there this summer. So I think McLeod's their third line center. They need a fourth line center. And potentially some bottom guys if Klim Kostin leaves to the KHL, which I think is probably low percentage chance. So I think right wing, though, in the top six, if I'm a right winger, and I know Connor Brown's name has been attached to Edmonton a lot, and it makes sense, that's the one change that could be significant. And it doesn't have to be a huge point guy because Edmonton score goals. Scoring goals isn't their problem. They have to find a right winger who's good offensively, but also reliable defensively there.
Well, that's part of what I've been wondering about the Oilers is looking in that Pacific Division. We've all learned how good Vegas was. It wasn't a fluke that team was able to move on. And you have to look at your opponents. I mean, if you're the Edmonton Oilers and you're thinking about next season's Stanley Cup playoffs, how do you counter against a team like Vegas that was so crushingly good defensively, even though Edmonton's power play was that strong? How does Edmonton get to the point where they can defend well enough? Is it just on goaltending? Do we have to see Stuart Skinner take tangible steps or see a resurgence from Jack Campbell to do so?
Well, I think goaltending will help, no question. But you go back and that series was lost in games 5 and 6, right? The first 4 were a wash. Each team split. Each team dominated the game. So Edmonton is equal. You get to games 5 and 6. The first and the third period of both games, Edmonton was the better team. They gave up 3 goals in a $129 in the second period. They got undisciplined. And then they had one bad breakdown. And then in game 6, again, second period, they gave up 3 goals and they made bad defensive errors, and not so much off of Vegas doing anything special, right? They had a Leon Draisaitl turnover. They had another one where, probably a point shot, you'd like a save from your goalie. But I really think Edmonton, Mike, they were right there with Vegas. The difference was Vegas didn't beat themselves. And Edmonton talked about it. And that to me is a mindset that will have to start the start of the season because they were Santa Claus for the first 3 months. They gifted more goals than any team in the NHL. And if you look at their numbers, Kevin Woodley told me they actually had the 3rd highest expected save percentage of any goaltending team in the league because they didn't give up a lot.
Yeah.
Was the ones they gave up were so grossly bad that some goalies, I don't care if it's Vasilevsky, you're probably not stopping it. So better goaltending will help, but I just think better continual team defense has got to be their focus.
My question for you, Jay, is how aggressive would you be? Like Ken Holland was aggressive at the deadline going out to get Mattias Ekholm, and I just feel my own personal opinion, like this is their year. Like you've got everyone lined up the way that you want it to, at least at this moment. Don't leave any stones unturned. If it means going out and spending 2 first-round picks this summer, or whatever it might be, to rejig your cap, be as aggressive as you can. my question, on a 1 to 10 scale, how aggressive would you be if you're Ken Holland, or do you think this is a team that doesn't really need a whole lot?
Yeah, I think the summertime, I might be like a 7. I wouldn't be crazy, but I would ensure that I got a good right winger because I think at the deadline, that's when you'll know where your team defense is at. And if you need to say, okay, we're going to go and now get the right side defenseman equivalent to Matthias Ekholm. And then you would give up the picks, you would sell the house then. So I wouldn't do it in the summer as much now. If Brett Pesce's available on the at the right price point, I'm looking strongly at Brett Pesce. I really like him. I'm probably biased. I think he'd be an ideal. He knows how to defend first, and he's got a great cap.
I just don't think he's going
one more
to
year, but the Oilers could re-sign him for $6 or $7 million next year when the cap goes up. So if you can get Brett Pesce this summer, I think that's the one realistic target. The rest are guys that maybe you look at the deadline, excluding the right winger. I do think they can't go into the season again with a lot of question marks there. Just get a solid guy that's not only decent offensively, but is going to be reliable defensively.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see what happens. I think that approach also makes a lot of sense, too. You also saw in the playoffs that what failed the Oilers wasn't McDavid or Draisaitl not producing. Of course, they did. It was they just ran into some untimely injuries and players not at their peak, and guys like Kane and Hyman, speaking to the need to continue to surround these guys with the best talent possible. Thanks to Jason Gregor for joining us today for the All 32 to talk Edmonton Oilers offseason. Big things ahead in the YEG this summer. Thanks, Jason.
Have a good one, fellas.